topics and opinions expressed in the following show are solely those of the hosts and their guests and not those of W4CY Radio, its employees, or affiliates. We make no recommendations or endorsements for radio show programs, services, or products mentioned on air or on our web. No liability, explicit or implied, shall be extended to W4CY Radio or its employees or affiliates. Any questions or comments should be directed to those show hosts. Thank you for choosing W4CY Radio.
Welcome to the Camping Show. I'm C.W. Getz.
And I'm Willow Munson.
It is Wednesday, October 6th, 2021. We have a 69-degree hazy day here in Chicago. Willow, what is the weather like in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania?
I think it's about low 70s, but very humid and very cloudy.
Yeah, we got that too. So you finally caught up with us here. Or you caught up with us because you had the nice weather for so long.
You still have less humidity than we do, and I'm still jealous.
I don't know. You know what? I can't look at the hygrometer in my office. That doesn't tell me anything. But I think it's pretty humid here. It really is. It's
okay.
Hazy and humid. So yeah, we're experiencing pretty much the same weather, it looks like. But well, tonight's episode is brought to you by Campground Views, making camping easier.
And by Rutabaga Paddle Sports, providing time on the water.
Tonight's episode is When Things Go Wrong with our special guest, Jon Turk. Willow, could you tell us a little bit about Jon, please?
75-year-old author and public speaker Jon Turk earned a Ph.D. in organic chemistry in 1971 and was nominated by National Geographic as one of the top 10 adventurers of the year in 2012. Jon also co-authored the first college-level environmental science textbook in North America. He kayaked around Cape Horn and across the North Pacific from Japan to Alaska, mountain biked across northern Gobi in Mongolia, as well as making numerous first ski descents and first rock climbing ascents around the globe. With 4 published trade books to his credit, his newest, Tracking Lions, Myth and Wilderness in Samburu, was published last month. Jon's other achievements include a Japan to Alaska expedition rated by Paddler Magazine as one of the top 10 sea kayak expeditions of all times, being featured on the front page of the New York Times, voted Best Expedition of the Year by Canoe and Kayak Magazine, and receiving the Northern Lights Award, first place in print journalism, each pertaining to his Ellesmere Expedition.
Well, with that, welcome to the show, Jon.
Welcome, Jon.
It's great to be here.
You know, Jon, there's a reason I have her read these introductions because did you hear the accent she put on Samburu? I love it. That was
it's supposed to be Samburu. We talked about it before and I still messed it up though.
Well, I would have messed it up way worse. So great job, Willow. I appreciate that. So yeah. How you doing tonight, Jon?
I'm doing great. It's a great day and beautiful fall day here in Montana. It's great to be on the show.
Yeah, well, thank you. It's great to have you here as well. So glad you're doing well.
Well, I want to start off by asking you about how did you first become involved in extreme adventuring?
Well, I'm going to answer this a little tongue-in-cheek. When I was 2 years old, before I can remember, but I could walk and barely was able to talk, my mother tells me I used to always run away. And if they'd let me out of their sight for a second, I'd be gone. And they'd often find me. There was a vacant lot down the block. We lived in Brooklyn, New York. And they wouldn't see me because I was shorter than the grasses. And they would just see the grasses moving. And then they would know that was me. Well, I know that you don't get a North Face Extreme team for going for a walk in a vacant lot, but in my heart, that was an extreme adventure. So then I grew up and I had all these expectations, and my father was a professor, my mother was a Ph.D., and it was expected for me to become a scientist. So I got my Ph.D. in chemistry, and all along there was this in me, this 2-year-old who wanted to just run away and run around in a vacant lot. So one day we lived up in the mountains in Colorado, and it was springtime and the snow was melting and the grasses were just coming up and the spring flowers were coming up. And my dog starts digging holes in the earth and smelling the earth. And I started running around in the meadow and shoving my whole head into these little holes and getting rings of mud around my face and smelling the earth. And I realized, man, I didn't want to be a chemist, you know?
Oh, wow.
Whoa,
Yeah.
I just really didn't want to be a chemist. So I went through and I got my degree and I defended my thesis. And as I walked out of my Ph.D. defense and they said, "Congratulations, doctor," I had my canoe tied on top of my car and I drove north. I never applied for a job.
I love it.
As a chemist, and then I floated down the Mackenzie and then up over the Rat River Pass into the Yukon in a Grumman aluminum canoe. Now, again, by modern standards, that's not a cutting edge adventure, but I had never been camping, you know?
Yeah.
And all of a sudden I was off for 2 months, and that was the beginning, and that was the genesis, and then things just kept building from there.
Oh, that's pretty cool. You know, part of that reminded me of a movie. The guys that just went off and did it, Deliverance.
Yeah. Well, that's what you have to do is just go off and do it.
That didn't turn out so well for them, but I'm glad that wasn't the case with you. Well, hey, let me ask you, these first trips, I mean, these were solo. These weren't tandem trips or anything like that, or with other people. They were group trips, or were they were solo, weren't they?
My first couple trips were done with one other person or a couple other people. But my first really big trip, which was to attempt, and I say attempt because I crash landed and almost died, to paddle around Cape Horn, the southern tip of South America. And that one was solo for the simple reason that nobody would go with me.
Did you take into anything going, I wonder why they're not coming along?
Well, it crossed my mind that everybody went, where they would shake their head very solemnly and say, "That's a good idea, John, but I ain't going."
Right. I love it. Go ahead.
Did you ever receive any specialized training for your extreme adventuring?
No.
Did you watch anybody? I mean, or just, anything like that, or you just you just went out there and said, "I'm just going to do this and see what happens."
I hate to say it like that, but kind of like that. When I was 17 and my brother was 12, we decided to go float the Allagash River in northern Maine. And again, we had never taken gotten a Boy Scout merit badge in canoeing or anything like that. We just went down the river, and all kinds of bad things happened. The canoe we had was all bent up front. So if you had to run rapids, you had to start on the left side of the river and make every turn to the right. The canoe would not turn left.
Are you serious? Are you just?
No, I'm totally serious. I'm not making this up. So, but as I started getting more advanced, my first book, Cold Oceans, I talk about 4 expeditions where I failed.
And when you say failed, what does that mean exactly?
Well, the worst failure was I was in my kayak. I was solo. I was on an uninhabited stretch of beach on the edge of the Antarctic Ocean, and I got caught in a storm. I got washed on the shore. I landed on a rock. My kayak broke in two. I dislocated my shoulder. I was swimming in the Antarctic Ocean with one hand, trying to grab some gear that came out of the broken kayak, got to the beach, set my shoulder. So I would call that a failure, you see.
You know something? That did I mention the movie Deliverance before? Because that sounds like a scene right out of Deliverance when they went over the big falls and everything. Boats came up.
Right.
Oh my gosh.
Right. So that's a failure. That counts as a failure.
I
And
don't know, but is it a failure? You did it, you started, you've managed to survive, and you went back to do it again.
Good
well,
point.
that was the thing. That was the thing. There came to a point after 3 of these failures, there came to be this realization. Sometimes I'm a little slow in the head, that either I had to get good or I had to quit, because these kinds of failures were no longer an option. And that's when I decided to get good, or try to get good. And then along the way, I had some really great teachers, really, really competent people who took me under their wing and helped me along. But another thing, whether you're in chemistry or in adventuring, if you're doing the next big thing, if you're out on the cutting edge, then you're always ahead of your teachers, and you're always going into the unknown.
Yeah.
And that's where it gets fun.
Yeah, good point. Hey, let me ask you, what kind of equipment did you actually have back then when you started out? And then of course, now how did that change over time?
Yeah. Well, I started off paddling in a Grumman aluminum canoe, which by modern standards is a rental thing for Frenchtown Pond and people who are going to beat the canoe up and stuff like that. That was the best I knew about. I knew I wasn't going to break it. When I tried to go around Cape Horn, at that time, there were no plastic performance sea kayaks on the market that you could buy in the world. And to do a trip like this, I knew needed a kayak. And so I got a full boat, which is a sister of the Klepper.
Okay.
And it's a good boat, but speed-wise, performance-wise, how it handled in surf and rough water, it was really a pathetic comparison to modern boats. And it's the same thing. When I started backcountry skiing, we had these skinny little wooden skis with these bale bindings that would frequently break and pop off and stuff like that. And
I've seen those.
Yeah. In a way, it was fun, and a way it hampered you because you didn't see the potential of the sport. Now I'm 75 and I have performance gear, and I wish I would have had that gear when I was 10, but it's been a good ride.
Yeah. Let me ask you this. Obviously there were no GPS or none of that kind of stuff out there. Did you have any? I mean, what was the fanciest piece of gear that you had back then when you first started? You thought, man, glad I got this thing.
Oh boy, the fanciest piece of gear. I don't know. Maybe it was a synthetic sleeping bag. So when you were wet, your down bags didn't just collapse.
Yeah.
And that was a really nice invention. That was really something that was good to have.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
So you mentioned your kayak near the Arctic Circle, having to pull yourself ashore. Can you tell us a little bit more about that, and maybe about some other of your extreme adventures when things went wrong?
Yeah. There are 2 kinds of situations where things go wrong. Arbitrary defined. One is things are going wrong. I might be dead in the next 5 seconds. And the other is things are going wrong. I got the next 5 seconds sewed up, but the next 5 days, we got a problem. And I think for me, the next 5-day issue is a more interesting issue because it gives you time to think. One of the things that is important to me that I've been working with for the last 5 or 10 years is finding your power, where your power comes in. And I'll give you an example. I was in the South Pacific in the Solomon Islands, kayaking from island to island. And I had a passage. I'm going downwind, down the trade. So once you leave Island A, you're not coming back to Island A. You've got to get to Island B. Island B is out of sight. You can't see it. And there's a current running through the channel that's washing you off. You've got a 1 or 2 kilometer target to hit. And if you miss it, you're dead because you're out in the Pacific. So on a situation like this, I had 2 GPSs. This is now more modern times. I have 2 GPSs because I really don't want to lose my navigation. Things can go wrong, right? So one is hidden in the boat in a very special spot, and the other is in my little ditty bag. So I leave early in the morning, like at midnight, because I want to make my landing in the light. So, because I'm coming in an unknown reef with unknown surf, and I want to make that landing in the light, but I can memorize my way out of this island the day before, and I can do that in the dark. So some local villagers befriended me, and I slept on their porch. And then we go down in the morning. It's midnight, 1 o'clock. It's dark, and I have my little ditty bag with my passport, my ticket home, my GPS, my valuable things. And I set that down in the seat of my cockpit, and I go off into the jungle to take a leak before I get in my boat. And I come back, and I get in the boat. I paddle out through the surf. I pick up my bag to get my bearings and mark my drift and everything. The GPS is gone.
Oh, wow.
When I went out to take a leak, somebody stole it.
Whoa. Didn't it just fall out of your bag?
No, it didn't just fall out of my bag. Bag was sealed.
And they didn't take your passport or anything?
No, they didn't take my passport or my ticket home, but they took my GPS.
Wow.
Wow.
Okay. All right. I'm out. I'm in the trade winds. I'm blown downstream. No GPS. Okay. No problem. I got a spare, right? So I reach into my secret little stash and pull out my spare, brand new Garmin right out of the box. I checked it when I bought it. It worked fine. I pushed the on button.
Oh, nothing.
Doesn't work.
My full body's in suspense right now.
Right.
So,
Oh, wow.
okay, no GPS. So now we're in this situation. I got the next 5 seconds locked in. It's a relatively calm sea. I'm a respectably decent paddler. I'm not going to tip over and drown, but I got to hit the island. And to do that, I got to calculate the cross current and calculate my drift.
Yeah.
And this is the kind of situation that I love. Your first reaction is anger. I'm really angry at those people who stole my GPS. I'm really angry at the quality control at Garmin who sold me a GPS with a on button that doesn't work. And then I realized that anger is not my friend right now.
No, not at all.
Not at all. And then what I realize is that I have to dig deep into all the knowledge I have, that every moment I've been in the kayak, that I've been watching the waves and feeling the waves and learning the ocean, that becoming friends with the ocean, that's what I have to rely on. It's the old South Pacific navigator situation.
Wow.
And so you have the waves and you have the current undercutting the waves. And when the current undercuts the waves, it changes the shape of the wave. And by feeling, remember, it's dark still. It's in the middle of the night. By feeling the shape of the wave, I can estimate the strength of the current. And by estimating the strength of the current, I can plot my course to this island. And that's the glory of adventuring.
Man,
That's
That's insane.
when it gets so much fun, when everything goes wrong and you have to find the power.
wow.
So, example number 2, I'm in this expedition with Eric Boomer, and we're circumnavigating Ellesmere Island. It's in the high north of the Canadian Arctic, closer to the North Pole than the Arctic Circle. It's pressed up against Greenland, and there's this narrow neck in the ocean. And this current is driven by the spin of the Earth. It's driven by the temperature difference between the North Pole and the equator. And this current is moving through this bottleneck between Ellesmere Island and Greenland. And the North Pole Ocean is ice. It's broken, packed, thick sea ice. And there are flows as big as a football field, flows a couple miles in diameter, flows as big as your fist. And it's all cramming through this neck.
Wow.
And it's explosive. Chunks of ice as big as a football field are getting thrust into the air, flying into the air, exploding, breaking into pieces, crystals of ice dancing in the sun. And we're supposed to get through this in a kayak. And to give an example, when Greeley was up there in the 1800s, it took the rescue team 3 years to get through. And we're supposed to get through this in our plastic kayaks. And I get this text from this friend of mine who's an extreme adventurer, and he says, "Don't do anything stupid."
It's always helpful to hear.
I go, "Thanks, dude. Thanks. It would be stupid to go out there and get dead. And it would be stupid to stay here. We're in the high Arctic. We're near 80 degrees north latitude. We're going to run out of food. It's going to get cold. We're going to get dead. So do I get dead right away or do I get dead later? How am I going to deal with this situation?" You see?
Interesting.
And this is when it gets fun.
Yeah.
And so my friend texts me back and he says, "Jon, when you face a barrier that's really strong, if you try to beat against it, if you try to climb over it, you're not strong enough. You have to pretend the barrier doesn't exist."
How do you do that exactly? How do you pretend it doesn't exist? I mean, that's just...
Well, I know it sounds impossible, but you just allow yourself to just be in the moment. And it sounds like a cliche.
Mm-hmm.
That it's not going to do you any good to fight against this barrier.
Okay. Wow.
You just have to tune in with it, accept it, embrace it, enjoy it. And you know what?
Obviously that worked for you because you're still here to tell us about it.
Yeah. I mean, the thing is, you have to then accept that you might die.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you have to accept that with equanimity, that, okay, this isn't looking good.
Wow.
But you have to be totally not in a battle with these forces that are too great with you.
Yeah. That makes sense. Yeah. I mean, it really does.
So what happened actually, and it could have been the other way. It could have been that we got dead, but we didn't get dead. We saw the ice opening up and we went out into it, and then it started closing up and getting really crazy, and we come back to shore. So we were fighting it for 10 hours. We were like full force,
Yeah.
10 hours, got back to where we started from unscathed. And then this wind came out, this magic wind. I mean, we had been held up for 17 days. This wasn't a one-day thing. We'd been waiting on the beach for 17 days, and this wind came up and blew the ice out. And that was our moment.
That was the escape, man.
That was the escape, and we paddled out, and it's in the high Arctic, so it was light all the time, but the light is getting softer in the evening. And we paddled out, and it's this dead, flat ocean, and the ice has moved off towards Greenland, and the ducks are skimming over the water, and they're happy.
And so are you.
It was the first day of summer and the first day of winter, because an hour into it, the ocean started to freeze over again.
Oh, wow.
And we were paddling through this skim of ice, and it was tinkling, tinkling, tinkling against the bow of our kayak. And we made it through the bottleneck.
Wow. Hey, let me ask you 2 questions.
Yeah.
Are you a religious man?
Oh, that's a hard one to answer. Yeah, I'm
sure
religious I'm religious if you accept my own religion, sure.
I think I'd have been doing a lot of praying, when I was in that situation like that. And I would have probably had some sort of bottle of something or another on hand just for those times where you're like, oh boy, well, now what,
Well, we had already drunk up our bottle of something or other before.
That's your reserve. That's like until the very end, But no, that's wild. Yeah, I can't even imagine. And by the way, real quick, we got to do a commercial break, but real quick, what was your food supply like at 17 days into this being stranded sort of thing? Good,
the food
bad?
Supply?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, we didn't gain weight, CW gets.
Well, that's a good diet plan, though. I mean, right? My gosh.
Yeah, we were calculating, when we're going to get through this and how much food we had, and should we eat more or less? Should we keep our energy up? Should we starve ourselves? Yeah.
It gets kind of fuzzy. I think everything would probably get fuzzy.
Fuzzy is a good word.
Yeah. I mean, what do we do? What's the right answer here? Because, you don't keep your energy up. That's not good. But then you eat all your food up and you got nothing left. And that's not good either. So it's the old rock.
Don't do anything
rock
stupid.
Yeah. Don't do anything stupid. That's right. I'd say you passed. Because you're here to tell us about that, first of all. So, yeah, very good. Very good.
Okay. Well, on that note, we're going to take a break, but don't go away. We'll be back with more of the camping show on W4CY Radio and Talk 4 TV after these messages.
It's time to go camping. Introducing Campground View's virtual tours. You can tour the campground, see the sites, see if they are available, and click to book your perfect spot. Hit the open road and explore the amazing places found in nature. We make it easy to discover, find, and book your site so that you can go have the fun and freedom you seek. Campground View's virtual tours make it easy and simple for you to see where you are going.
A few years ago, someone asked Rutabaga's owner, Darren Bush, "Hey, how long have you guys been selling boats?" Darren replied, "We don't sell boats. We sell time on the water." Of course, that comes in all types. We help people paddle more safely with Rutabaga outdoor programs. We rent canoes, kayaks, and stand-up paddleboards. We sell and install racks to get you from home to adventure. Rutubaga's got everything you need to get you out on the water, like paddles, life jackets, dry bags, and clothing. Rutabaga Paddle Sports, on the web at rutabaga.com. Mention you saw this ad on The Camping Show.
And we're back with our guest, Jon Turk, here on The Camping Show. Well, we got some messages. You want to read those for us, what we got coming in? People saying hi and things like that.
Yeah, there we have Casey Happy Camper saying, I'm religious if you just accept my own religion, except that's what you said. And that's why Jon is such a great person to chum around with at the canoe shows and is such an amazing author. Is this Kevin, I'm assuming?
Yep, that's Kevin. That's Uncle Kevin. He'll be on next week. And he was excited to hear you were going to be here this evening, Jon. So excited to tell you hello.
Kevin also said, hi, everyone. Jon's writing and adventures are amazing. We've had some great times hanging together at the U.S. canoe shows. We also have more comments coming in just saying hello.
Yeah, we got here.
Hello.
Yeah, Cool Quest. And that's Johnny and Colleen.
Ooh, we have a question. How about any wildlife encounters on these big adventures you're doing?
Yeah.
Well, there are the good ones and the scary ones. The good one was when the wolf came and spent a day with us, a night with us, cuddled up outside the tent, close enough that if I pushed the tent a little bit, I could pet the wolf, and was there in the morning staring in the window when we opened the vestibule to let some circulation in to start our stove. And I called it the spirit wolf. Welcome, not the fairy godmother wolf. There are no fairy godmother wolves, but the spirit wolf welcoming us to the Arctic. The scary one was when a bad boy polar bear was curious to see what was in the tent and ripped a hole in the tent and stuck his head in on my side of the tent. And I jump up and there's the polar bear right there. So lots and lots and lots and lots of wildlife encounters, too many to talk about.
You are a very blessed man to have lived through all this stuff and unscathed.
Yeah, holy crap.
Yeah. I'm going to just say, read a couple of people with messages here. Mustang 774, good evening all. Waterborne Camper, hey guys, and Camper 69, greetings. And Cool Quest, of course, with their question as well. And let's see, did I say Camper 69? Yes, a lot of cool questions here, or comments rather. And of course, Uncle Kevin. So appreciate that. Seasons of Serenity. Good evening, everyone. So thanks for sending your message in here. Appreciate that. So, Roxy, hey, can we put some photos up here and have Jon kind of go through them? Tell us a little bit about them here briefly. We've got a few more questions.
Oh, my favorite photo. This is the cover of my new book, Tracking Lions, Myth, and Wilderness in Samburu. Just came out, and it's a great book.
Yeah.
This is a village in Samburu where I spent the time. I was there to track lions. It's near the Olduvai Gorge where humanity first evolved. And I ended up going into an exploration not only of the modern Samburu culture, but of human evolution. These are women. This is making a house. At a wedding, the women make the house for the wedding couple, and they're weaving sticks together. No 20-year mortgage. You make the house on the wedding day, and you move in. You're all set to go.
Oh, wow.
The book talks about myths we love, myths that give us strength, and myths that tear us apart. So at the same time that I became involved with wonderful people who support each other, we also crossed into tribal warfare, and there was, as I call it, the myths we love and kill for.
Wow.
Now we're back in Siberia, or starting in Siberia, traveling across the tundra. We were looking for a camp of reindeer herders. The tundra is 9 time zones from east to west, and we had very few directions. And we found this guy, and he said, "Oh, go that away. You'll find them." This is an Ellesmere trying to circumnavigate Ellesmere, and you never know what the ice is going to be. If the ice is smooth, you're good. If it's busted up into pressure ridges, then it's hard work making the miles.
That looks like a lot of work, John.
That's
Man.
a lot of work. That's a lot of work. You drag over one of those pressure ridges. They're 10, 15, 20 feet high. You lower down the other side, and you've made it 100 yards. You've got to make 15 miles a day to get to your food cache.
Wow.
Here we're in Ellesmere again. The moving ice that I talked about a little earlier. Here we pick up a few miles. It's high tide, so the ice is grounded out, and we have a little channel right against the shore, and we can make a few miles. It's just absolutely beautiful. Again, Ellesmere, when this ice gets active and starts getting crazy, you got to pull to shore because things start moving around, and there's enough pressure that these chunks of ice start flying around.
Wow.
But when things are quiet,
yeah,
you've got the magic wormhole through the barrier. This is on the Japan to Alaska trip. We paddled 2 years from Japan to Alaska. This is the topic of my second book, In the Wake of the Jomon. And it's a day the ice moved in, and all of a sudden things get crazy and get to shore real quick because you got to get to shore.
Wow.
Mulanat. When I met her, she was 96 years old. She was born during the reign of Tsar Nicholas II. She was one of the last of the shamans in the old way, born in a skin tent, a great healer. And I ended up spending 5 years off and on in her village and wrote a book about her, The Raven's Gift.
Wow. That's amazing. You have met some interesting people in all of your travels, as it were. Man,
well, I'm meeting some interesting people right here in the radio studio.
Oh, man, you're a sweetheart. Thank you so much. Likewise, back at you.
I think Mike summed up those pictures pretty well by saying, awesome photos. You have had a blessed life, my friend.
Yeah, for sure.
Thank you.
So being a presenter and a public speaker, which events have been among your favorites?
Oh, there's hands down. So I was asked to give a talk at a weekend retreat in New York, upstate New York, the Omega Center. And it was a weekend spiritual retreat, find your presence and everything like that. So I look at the program, and these people, they're speakers all night Friday night and all day long Saturday. All day people are talking to them. Well, let me tell you something. You see, talk is not one of those deeply spiritual methods of communication. So now I'm supposed to get up there for 2 hours Saturday night after these people have been listening to people talking at them all day long. And I go, there's no way I can do this, you see. But I had ace up my sleeve. I had been working in Boston for the last 2 years as a storyteller with a modern dance company. And I said, I'm not going to talk my talk. We're going to dance my talk. And I gave all my honorarium money to the dancers because we had to do a good job on this. We had to do a good job. And we danced the story of Mulanat called Synchronicity in the Sacred Space. And I talked very little. And we had these moments where a dancer would say, or I would say, this is what I'm telling you. These are words. And then I would hold the dancer's hand and says, but this is what it felt like. And she would explode into this beautiful expression of movement and dance and music. And that was the most fun event I ever did.
Wow. That's incredibly unique.
Yeah, we got a standing ovation. We brought the house down. when the music was coming as a crescendo and everybody was moving around and the dancers were jumping up and they were all touching, at this point, me and the dancers are in physical contact. We're touching and the music is explosive, and it's the end, but we still got more to do. The whole audience was up clapping and yelling, and you couldn't hear the music. It was really good.
Wow. And when you've written a lot of books, and so how do the themes in your latest books address the title of this conversation, When Things Go Wrong?
Right. The newest book, Tracking Lions, Myth, and Wilderness in Samburu, is really following this theme we've been talking about this whole show, which is power, where you find your power. So I was there to track lions, and the third day I was there, a lion ate one of the village cows, and the head man and I, just the two of us, were supposed to go track this lion. And before I take off, somebody hands me a wooden club. And they said, if bad things happen, if things go south on you and the lion comes charging out of the bushes, you need to defend yourself. And so here's
good protection.
Club. And they explained to me how to neutralize a charging lion with a wooden club. And I thought it was pretty cool at first when I was in the village. Yeah, I got this club. I'm a Stone Age Paleolithic man. And then we get out there and the tracks are really fresh. And there's a lion really close. And I look at this club, and like what we've been talking about before, I get angry. Why did they do this to me? It's their fault. It's somebody else's fault. This is really dumb. And then, as we've talked about before, anger is not your best friend. Power is your friend. And then I start thinking about how humanity survived in this savanna with these lions, with these weapons. And that started the new book. That was the scene that opens the new book. And then I look into the anthropology, and the interesting thing, the fact, anthropological fact, is that human beings, our species, Homo sapiens, were not doing well on the savannah. We were starting to become extinct. From DNA evidence, there were only 2,000 people left on the planet, Homo sapiens. And then the population turned around, and human being population exploded. And what was the spark that gave us our power? And it was not tools and weaponry. It was art. It was music. It was dance. And that's what the book is about. It's because we are in trouble now as a species. Once again, we are facing real big problems. And tools are fine. Solar panels are fine. And electric cars are fine. I'm all for that. Vaccines are fine. All that's good. But that's not enough. That's not going to do it. You need the power. You need what Paul Ehrlich called the consciousness revolution. And that's what this book is about.
Wow.
Well, I guess I have a new book to read.
Yay!
Oh, that's awesome.
We have Waterborne Camper saying, man, this guy has lived.
Yay, Waterborne Camper. Thank you.
I think he has a new book to read too.
Oh, yeah. That is so cool. Well, John, where can our listeners and viewers go to follow you and purchase your books?
Well, my website is www.jonturk.net. My email is john@jonturk.net, and I answer all my emails. And if you have an interesting idea, it'll go up on the chat room in my website. And from there, I'm on social media, Jon Turk, John and Darby, at Deep Wilderness, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, all that stuff. But go to my website first. That's where the real communication goes on.
That's where the good stuff is at.
Yeah.
I love it. All right. Well, we'd like to thank you, Jon, for being our guest here on the Camping Show. It was a pleasure having you here with us this evening.
Well, thank you, Willow, and thank you, CW Getz. It's been a pleasure. Great time.
You're very welcome.
We'd also like to thank our sponsors, Campground Views and Rutabaga Paddle Sports, for bringing you tonight's show.
Be sure to tune in for next week's episode, Hot Tents versus Cold Tents, with our special guest, Kevin Callan.
Until then, thank you for tuning into The Camping Show.
This is CW Getz
and Willow Munson,
reminding you,
learn more,
do more. See you next week.
See you next week.